Okay, we're gonna change gears here for a second. Well, it's more than a second. The www.futureofmankind.co.uk/Billy underscore Meyer slash event underscore timeline. These people give a chronological history of the Earth and basically the universe, everything else, and it's pretty extensive, all the way back from 46 trillion years ago. So I'm not gonna read anything that wasn't directly from either Billy or from Semjase or the play Aaron. I'm gonna read only these people organized it all in one page. So I'm gonna try to read it to you, and you can listen. You can check it out if you like. But like I said, it is on the Future of Mankind website, and you're more than welcome to follow along or just listen and kind of go from there. Okay. 46 trillion years ago was the birth of this universe, the Dern universe. 41 trillion 800 billion years ago, the stage of this universe's development was reached in which the first fine matter began to change into its transitional form. 40 trillion 300 billion years ago, the first solid material came into existence. 39 trillion 260 billion years ago, the first higher forms of life came into being. 1 trillion 911 billion years ago, the first formations of gas come about for the Milky Way galaxy. 1 trillion 730 billion years ago. That's 679, that's 9, that's 10 zeros in there. 1 trillion 730 billion years ago, the first formations of gas come about for the sun. 646 billion years ago, the Earth itself had the beginning of its origins as the first gases, molecules, and atomic particles and quarks and so forth formed. 46 billion years ago, the solid body of Earth began to form. 28 billion years ago, Noko Demjan became a purely spiritual form. 9 billion 600 million years ago, the prophet Noko Demjan, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, but pronounce it the way it's spelled, Noko Demjan, is born in the Warren, W-A-R-O-N, star system in the Lyran galaxy. He appeared repeatedly until the last time of 1.2 billion years ago. 7 billion years ago, the Syrian creator overlords lost knowledge of their true ancestry or origin. They lose the capacity to defend themselves, and they start to genetically engineer new warrior races. Warrior races, in parentheses, much later, mutiny and escape with help across the galaxy, and some arrive on the planet Kudra, K-U-D-R-A, in the Nisan star system, and others on planets Mars and Malana in the Sol star system, and land and begin to create colonies. Let me do that again. 7 billion years ago, the Syrian creator overlords lost knowledge of their true ancestry or origin. They lose the capability to defend themselves, and they start to genetically engineer new warrior races. Warrior races, in parentheses, much later, they mutiny and escape with help across the galaxy, and some arrive on the planet Kudra, K-U-D-R-A, in the Nisan star system, N-I-S-A-N, star system. Others on planets Mars and Malona in the Sol star system. That's our system. And land begin to create new colonies. So this was before Malona blew itself up, before the inhabitants of Malona trashed the planet, and now it's the asteroid belt. But anyway, this is proof that civilization existed on Mars as well at one time. Okay, 5 billion years ago, the Earth was so hard and solid that slowly life developed on it. First only seas of lava and volcanoes, and then, in the course of time, also the very first and primitive life in the form of lichenoid plant life. Okay, 1,200,000,000 years ago, Nokodem John came back out of the Arahat Atharsata spirit level for the sake of his peoples, who followed no creational laws and recommendations at all, to bring his peoples to reason and therefore to rationality. Enoch's original tribes split into two lineages. One lineage, who we refer to as the old Lyrans, went its own way to settle throughout the galaxy and eventually settled in the Lyra and Vega star system, in another space-time shifted configuration. Another lineage, who we now refer to as the creator overlords, also settled throughout the galaxy and eventually arrived in the Sirius star system. Okay, 110 million years ago, the Lyrans, and Vegans first emigrated from their original home planet named Kados, K-A-D-O-S, in a distant galaxy known as Negeren, N-E-G-E-R-E-N galaxy, at an average distance from the Sol system of 6.3 billion light years, to first settle down in other areas of other star systems and other galaxies. 28 million years ago, the first humans in their original form, actually all these years are from our calendar of 0, so it's BC, I guess you would say, 28 million BC. The first humans in their original form came into being on the oldest planetary systems of our galaxies. The first humans in their original form came into being on the oldest planetary systems of our galaxies. Well, how about the Lyrans and the Vegans? They weren't human? I think they were human too. I'm not getting that. Anyway, 27 million years ago, the first physically recognizable humans emerged quite certainly as the life forms named hominids, which, however, first appeared very much later on the Earth. 26 million years ago, the Lyran galaxy dissolved itself and turned into energy, out of which new stars and planets and a new galaxy came into being. Some of the human spirit forms incarnated on Earth are originally from the Lyran galaxy, Lyra, the Lyran galaxy. Some peoples who had originally set off from planet Kados of the Negeren galaxy 110 million years ago to emigrate to various other star systems in various galaxies, now emigrate to the area of Lyra. 22 million years ago, the first three peoples who first came to Earth simultaneously. They were the red ones, the brown ones, and the white ones. This came about because the destroyer, she's talking about the destroyer comet, had done its work of destruction in the Lyran home systems. So the destroyer comet went through the Lyra home systems and trashed it. Okay, 2,400,000 years ago, the Kinten, K-I-N-T-E-N, in parentheses, Chinese, and the Nipper, N-I-P-E-R, in parentheses, Japanese races arrive at planet Nisan in the Lyra star system. after traveling from planet Kudra of the Nissan star system, Kudra of the Nissan star system. So they're saying that the Chinese and the Japanese came from Kudra of the Nissan star system. Anyway, 1,500,000 years ago, indigenous Earth human develops into its modern form. 500,000 years ago, indigenous Earth human develops first tools. 387,000 BC, the ET Assael, A-S-A-S-E-L, created Ledon, L-E-D-O-N, the father of the dark race, in parentheses, the native African race, end parentheses, with an Earth human female. Semjase, not Semjase, this is Semjase, this was a guy, created Adam, the father of the white human race. Sartael, S-A-R-T-A-E-L, created Tet-El, T-E-T-E-L, Tet-El, the father of the red, in parentheses, American Indian human race. Giant humans of up to 33 feet height arise from the mixing of ET human and Earth human over several generations. The prophet Enoch travels to Earth from the Lyra star system from a different space-time continuum, in parentheses. 228,000 BC. War of liberation in the Lyra and the Vega systems. That was the big war that everybody kind of scattered all over from. 190,000 BC. Pelagon arrives from Pleiades with 70,000 of his people on Earth. Pelagon was a bad guy. I mean, he had 70,000 people, but he demanded human sacrifices and whatever. Anyway, 131,000 BC. Refugees from space-time shifted region of Beta Centauri, led by Atlant, settle on Earth and establish cities of Greater Atlantis, Lesser Atlantis, and Mu, M-U. Refugees also from Pleiades, led by Armus, settle in modern-day Armenia region. Refugees from the Sirius system also settle on Earth at another location. Okay, about 73,000 BC. Planet Phaeton / Malona, Phaeton / Malona, is destroyed by the inhabitants through war actions. More specifically, tremendous quantities of seawater are induced into the crater of a volcano. This causes an explosion that partially destroys it, but which also thrusts it to a more distant orbital position, whereupon a further explosion completes its destruction. They're talking about making the asteroid belt from the planet Malona. Thus, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is created because of man's insanity and megalomania. The atmosphere on Mars also becomes uninhabitable by a temporary increase in solar energy, followed by a receding of the radius Sun's life zone. Most of the human spirit forms of Malona and Mars reincarnate on Earth, which becomes the only planet remaining within the life zone. So some of the spirits forms here on Earth come from Mars and some come from Malona, which is now the asteroid belt. Okay, 71,344 BC. Egyptian pyramids are built by a group of humans from Orion constellation. 71,344 BC. That's a little different than what we're believing. 48,000 BC. The beginning of the current age of peace of the Pleiadian star system. Okay, 23,988 BC. The Kintan, in parentheses Chinese, and Nippur, in parentheses Japanese, races arrive on Earth from the Lyra star system. So they went to Lyra and then they came to Earth. Okay, 13,500 BC. All 144,228 members of the Gretruar immigrate from Lyra to Earth in order to assist the Nocodemion spirit form in the mission, which for Earth began in 387,000 BC. 13,000 BC. Group that later became the Ba'ath fail an attempted coup and flee to space-time shifted region of Beta Centauri. The Ba'ath, they were the bad guys, the Giza intelligences. 11,500 BC. It was recognized that the High German language must exist on the Earth in the New Age so that the teachings of the Spirit could be fully, extensively clarified, comprehensively, with the required words and terms and word combinations, as would not be possible in any other language of the Earth peoples during this future time. So we're all supposed to be speaking German. 11,000 BC. The Ba'ath return, led by Aris I, and initially conquer Hyperborea in the far north, parentheses, modern-day Florida, USA, end parentheses. Aris II, son of Aris I, obviously, conquers India, known then as Aryan, Pakistan, and Persia locations, and forces the Sumerian forefathers south. The Sumerian forefathers are descendants of the Syrian refugees that settled in 131,000 BC. In 10,790 BC, Aryan splits off from Hyperborea and allies itself with Mu and Agharta. Now, Agharta is the underground cities which are part of Mu. Hyperborea constantly attacks Mu and Greater Atlantis for the next 502 years. Okay, 9,498 BC. Greater Atlantis and Mu destroy each other. And we kind of talked about that in detail a couple of contact reports ago. 9,000 BC, the prophet Enoch is born. 6,339.5 BC, the destroyer rips Venus out of its orbit around Uranus and tows it behind itself in the direction of the Earth's orbital path. 6,104 BC, Venus breaks into the Earth's path and disturbs its rotation in such a way that a new rotational period originates, bringing gigantic earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, and elemental storms. Lesser Atlantis, in modern-day Santorini, Greece, is destroyed by the volcanic eruptions. So when Venus came by, it came by close enough that it changed the spin of the Earth. It seems like we had like 40-hour days, and now we're down to 24-hour days. I forget exactly what it is. But it changed the rotation of the Earth, and I think it also changed the direction that it rotated. I'm sure we'll get to that. 4023 BC. Aris the 11th is murdered by his third-born son, Jehavan, who took over command of the Hyperboreans, Armas people, the Aryans, and Hebrions. 4006 BC. Venus crosses into the Earth's path and lightly disturbs it without bringing about large catastrophe. Okay, 3683 BC. Jehavan, or I don't know, but I'll say them as they're spelled. Jehavon, Jehavan, murdered by his son Jehav, who then took over command. 3545 BC. Venus stabilizes itself and sets itself into its own path around the sun. 3343 BC. Jehav, murdered by firstborn son Arusam, but Arusam exiled by his younger brothers Ptah and Salam, Salam. Arusam returns soon after and creates his base beneath the Giza pyramids. We're talking the Giza intelligences. Ptah and Salem begin to rule Hyperborea with justice, wisdom, and kindness. Now the Ptah here is not the Ptah, it's not Semjase's grandfather, it's a different Ptah. This was 3,343 BC that this happened. Okay, 3010 BC. Arusam, ousted by a mutineer called Hen, Henn, known as Jehovah in the tongue of the Hebraeans, and the Cruel One. 2080 BC. Jehovah displaced by Kamagol the First. Sorry, I got interrupted. Kamagol the First forced all earthly religions into his control and created terrible cults which demanded human blood. Kamagol II, his son, was even worse. He overthrew his father, deprived him of power, and let him die miserably in a deep dungeon. Kamagol II introduced the monstrous mass murder of earth-born terrestrial human beings. 1446 BC. Hilak, Hilak, Ptah's great-great-grandfather. I think we're talking Semjase's great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Anyway, Ptah used a dimension transportation device, probably a beamship, to go to several time-shifted spacetimes of Earth, i.e. the future, in order to compile a report which later could be condensed into a chronicle of general but important and preceding events surrounding the life of the prophet of the New Age, which his great-great-grandson could deliver in the form of a prediction text at the point of delivery. Okay, and it says see prophecies and predictions. Okay, so this is Semjase's grandfather. Actually, no, this is Semjase's father. But Ptah's great-great-grandfather used the dimension transfer. In other words, he went into the past and he chronicled the history of the earth. Okay, in 891 BC, the prophet Elijah is born. 772 BC, the prophet Jesiah is born, Jesaia. 662 BC, the prophet Jeremiah is born. 63 BC, Pleos, Plejos, Pleos, son of Salam, takes over leadership of the civilization of Hyperborea. 22 BC, Pleos places Hyperborea under the guidance of the Andromedan High Council. 2 BC, this is year 2, 2 years before our calendar, 2 BC. The prophet Emmanuel is born on February 3rd in Bethlehem, Palestine. His biological father was the Pleiadian Gabriel, and his mother was the earth woman called Mary. 1 BC, Pleos and his people depart Earth for the Pleiades. Okay, 571. Yeah, 571 AC, after Emmanuel, I guess. 500. The prophet Muhammad is born on the 19th February in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. And then about 1800 to 2000 AD, Pleiadian fine material impulse communications with telepathic transmission devices to various individuals worldwide, such as Einstein and others. They are provided information that lead to various progresses, for instance, in technology and medicine, etc. And they say, see Foo Fighters. They're talking about the Pleiadian Foo Fighters or telemeters or... Anyway, we got several of them on our channel, on my channel here. In 1937 AD, the prophet of the new time, Edward Albert Meyer, is born on 3rd February in Bulach, Switzerland. He was the second of 7 children. His father was a shoemaker. And they're talking about Billy Meyer. 1937. That's why we just had a birthday on the 3rd of February. 1945, Svath, which is Semjase's dad. Swath explains to Billy, no, that's granddad, explains to Billy in February that Hiroshima 6th, followed by Nagasaki the 9th, would be destroyed by atomic weapons. And then this was in February, and then in August of that year it happened. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were both wiped out. 1976. Kamagol II dies at almost 4,000 years old. 1977. Quetzal takes Billy forward in time in a beam ship to photograph San Francisco and surrounding areas after a big earthquake and tsunami. Okay, we haven't gotten that far in our contact reports, so right now we're kind of leading into the future of the contact reports. 1977. Published books. Semjase Contact Reports, First Edition, Volume 1, Contact Report 01 through 08. So the first 8 contact reports were published in 1977. 1978, all 2,100 members of the Bathath group arrested and deported to the Niebuhr system by the Pleiadian Federation. Base under Giza pyramids, removed of all technology and filled with stone. So they got rid of those Giza intelligences. All right. October 1981 AD. The inhumane population of an entire system, which included 16 inhabited planets and 3 suns, was preparing to invade Earth and other already inhabited planets because its system was sinking into a downfall, in quotes. However, they were forcibly prevented from doing so and were relocated to other uninhabited planets by the Pleiadian Federation. 1982, a splinter group of the Bathath on planet Saban in the Charon star system, 2.1 million light-years distant, are arrested and their base with its devastating booby trap disarmed. That's the Bathath. That's the Giza intelligences still. 1995. All personnel of the Pleiadian Federation depart Earth. All bases of operations are returned to their natural states again. Monitoring devices remain, of which telemeter discs are among these. I've seen 3 of them. Okay, about 2074 to 2075 AD, which is in the future, Nocodemion spirit forms next incarnation, when it will continue to, quote, spread the mission again in this world as another personality, end quotes. 3999 AD. The Nocodemion spirit form will leave Earth, where it has existed since 387,000 BC, to continue the mission throughout the rest of the universe. 380 million AD. Yeah, 380 million AD, the sun will already be incorporated into processes through which an extensive activity will emerge by what means all life on Earth will slowly start to become extinct. All CO2 will start to sink into the ground. Okay, about 470 million years AD. No floral, fauna, and human life can exist on the planet anymore. So we've got about 469 million years left on the Earth if we don't blow it up. Okay, 4 million. Wait a minute. 4 trillion. Let's see. Thousands, millions. 4 billion years. 4 billion AD. The sun will only exist as a dead, respectively shrunken, dark, and inactive star, along with some active planets, which will still float together with their burned-out sun through free space for around 6 billion years. And then around 10 billion AD, the entire Sol star system will be pulled in by a black hole and be compressed by its heavy mass. Okay, and that is the timeline. The people that say ancient aliens and all that stuff, and people laugh at them or whatever. There wasn't just ancient aliens. There was hundreds of different races that came through and fought and left and came back, and they genetically modified the Earth species, and the Chinese came, and the Japanese came, and the just everybody. And Venus come across, and it changed the orbit of the Earth. This solar system has been all over the map. So anyway, this is the timeline that is on www.futureofmankind.co.uk/Billy_Meyer/event_timeline. And this was composed by the wonderful people at Future of Mankind. This was composed from contact reports and whatever. They tried to put everything all in one place as far as the history of the planet. Revealed by Billy and the Pleiadian Federations, and some of those yet to come. So, I'm not sure how I'm going to post that right now. I might put that off a little bit, get another few more contact reports, and then I'll post this one. But we'll get it up there. Okay. Have a great day.